Views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And I hope everybody had a nice, long holiday weekend and enjoyed the wonderful weather. I'm being facetious with that one. But, well, we had a council meeting last night, if you could call it that.
Yeah, I mean...
A mini meeting.
A 40-minute recess between the Finance Committee meeting, where nothing was spoken about, and the City Council meeting.
So,
honestly, you know, the guy who's filling in, I think his name is Aya Capone.
Yes, it is.
Come down, and he knew nothing.
So
told us nothing.
So he knew the same amount of information he did when he was actually doing the job, which was nothing.
Nothing.
And they never do the job. That's the problem. But nobody wants to do the job. The council meeting, we have a new city administrator.
Yep.
Who doesn't want to do finance.
Right.
So my question is, what is he going to do?
Administer the city.
Well, why should he have to admit? See, and I know there was 9-0 the vote.
Right.
Everybody was impressed.
Right. And he met with every single city councilor.
Which is, to me, not right. That is lobbying with the council. Job. The council is supposed to be the check and balance.
Right.
The mayor appointed this guy, and he allowed him to go have, like he likes to do, have private meetings with everybody. And who knows what a set of those meetings.
Actually, no. Seth Atkins does not like the private meetings with everybody. He met with the city councilors not to lobby, and I got this from city councilors, but to discuss what they're looking for in that position.
Well, that's a good way to frame it. But when you meet with somebody behind closed doors, nobody knows what happened.
Right, exactly.
Nobody knows what was said or what was promised. But look, I got a problem with the whole thing. Because let me make this clear. I actually dealt with every single city administrator we've had in the history of this city. Because I started with the first city administrator ever created, Alan Silva, all the way up through Kathy Ann Viveris, who was the last one. I dealt with them all. Jim Smith,
Bob
Connors, all of them, every one of them.
Bob Connors and Allen were really good ones, though.
Bob Connors, Allen was a great finance guy. And this is the point I want to make here. He doesn't want to do finance, and everybody was duly impressed. I don't know what the hell they're impressed about. Because what is he going to do? I took the time this morning to do a little research, very little, because it's easy. I knew most of this stuff, but I just wanted to confirm it. This is the definition of an administrator, a person responsible for running a business or an organization. So you explain to me why we need a city administrator who's not going to do anything of the financial stuff, but he's going to run the city. Well, we have a police chief making 6 figures to run the police department. And the police chief isn't out there pounding a beat. He's not out there driving around in a patrol car. He sits in an office and administers the police department. That's his job. And he's getting a lot of money for it. And he puts together the budget for the police department, as does the fire chief, as does the head of DCM, as does the superintendent of schools, as done everybody in this city who has done this since, okay, let me show you how long it was done without a city administrator. But he doesn't want to do any finance. That's really the only piece, to put together all the finances and oversee what and we've got an auditor and a treasurer. I've never been in favor of this job. This is to relieve the mayor of any duties and make him the queen or the king. Because his job now is to only go out and politic, because he's got an administrator And then a whole bunch of other administrators being paid. In the old days, they just brought in all the department heads, sat them down in front of the council at budget time, and went over the budget with the individual who actually created the budget for that department, and held them accountable for their budgets. But no, we have to get another tier of government, and now we got a CFO now. So he made sure he didn't want to do finances so he could keep the other new job. This is even a newer job. Okay, Fall River was bought from the Wampanoags in 1659. It was settled in 1686. It was incorporated as a city in 1803. That was 221 years ago. The city administrator's job came in the early 80s. So that was, we went 221 years without a city administrator.
Imagine that.
And we've only had one for 42 years. So we went 179 years, I'm sorry, my math, that's 221 years, till today. Okay, so we went 179 years without an administrator. You know, they're impressed. Bob Connors was a good city administrator because he understood collective bargaining. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm not casting an aspersion on this guy. This guy may be the most principled guy in the world, but this is just my personal opinion. And this opinion is based on someone who actually negotiated and worked with every city administrator we've ever had. You shouldn't have a lawyer as a city administrator, because a lawyer is someone who makes deals, who interprets language, and that is always subjective. It's not objective. The real value of a city administrator in a city, which I don't think we really need, what we need is somebody. The reason Connors was good was because Connors sat as a labor negotiator on the labor side and on the management side. Look at the money we're wasting in the city of Fall River on these contracts. They're piling up 2-3 years worth of comp time, so when they're off the job, they're still on a payroll, which is absurd. They shouldn't be because they're retired. But this is the kind of stuff, we look at these contracts and look what's in these contracts, because they were politically negotiated for holding signs for various mayors. Connors was a really good city administrator because he understood collective bargaining. He wasn't a lawyer. Alan Silver was a great administrator because he was a tremendous numbers guy, and he could negotiate. He was harder to negotiate with because he really didn't see the nuances of contracts. But if you sat down in a room with him and I became really good friends because Alan was the greatest guy with numbers I've ever seen. The guy's like, he's brilliant. He was brilliant. But look, we get back to everybody saying, oh, I'm so impressed. This is going to be so wonderful. We got another job for 130 grand that we really shouldn't have. If the mayor wants to be the mayor, this is why I've always been in favor of, if we get a city administrator, I don't have a problem with it, but let's get rid of the mayor. Let's make the mayor what he is, ceremonial.
That's right.
The word that this guy got elected on, I'm not going to be a ceremonial mayor. Well, if you're not a ceremonial mayor, you shouldn't need a city administrator and a CFO. We got enough people getting paid to run this city. And a chief of staff. And remember, this city at one time, when it was one of the largest textile cities in the world, had nearly 150,000 people. Now we had 80-something, now we're up to 94, supposedly, 94. And who knows. But the reality is this is all BS. All we've ever seen is budgets and administrations grow on the school department, now on the city side, all these tier after tier after tier after tier of administrators. We don't need them. We've already got them. You go to the fire department, the police department, they got captains, lieutenants, sergeants in the police department. They're the people that are out on the street running the damn departments. You think this DCM guy is out digging ditches? He's not. He's scheduling the ditches to be dug. That's what he's got. We've got a whole bunch of people doing this already. But this, again, last night was another. You know, everybody's singing Kumbaya and saying, oh, this is going to be wonderful. We got a city administrator back. It's the panacea to everything. All the problems of Fall River are going to go away because this guy says he's going to be a great city administrator. Well, how about having a great police chief, great fire chief, great DCM, great water department head, and hold their feet to the fire like we used to? Because you know something? We're all getting killed with inflation, and now we're going to get killed with all these new jobs because now they have memorialized the CFO. This guy took the job to ensure that they could hire somebody as a CFO. So, look, it's not an aspersion on him. I don't think lawyers should be city administrators in the capacity they operate in this city. He's not a city manager. He's a city administrator. He's supposed to run the city. Why is he running a city that is made up of a whole bunch of departments, all of which have their own administrator? That's my question. So that was a nice rant, CJ. Your turn.
That's a good, that's actually a good question. I mean, I've, in looking at some of Seth Atkins' work in the legal department, I have no complaints. Like you said, he's a lawyer.
Yeah.
I have no complaints. He's been very good on his opinions. He's been very good on negotiating out settlements. He's been very good at negotiating out complaints. So I don't have a problem with him in that respect. Because again, like you said, he's a lawyer. You and I have both agreed for over 10 years now that the city needs a city administrator like it needs a hole in its head. Okay?
Or a new charter.
No, it definitely needs a new charter.
Needs a new charter.
And the other thing is, we have a treasurer, we have an auditor, we have a city collector. What do we need a chief financial officer for? To give somebody a job. Because that position did not exist until Mary Sahadi. And she served in that position for what, 3 years? Mm-hmm. And I mean, 4 years, 3 years, 4 years?
I think it's 4 now.
Yeah, 3 years, 4 years she served in that position. But that position was created specifically so she could get a $40,000 a year pay raise.
So, and it was also created because Kathy Ann Viveris could not handle the financial piece of being a city administrator.
Exactly.
And this guy has already come on a job saying, I'm not going to touch that part.
Right.
So again, we've actually made this job less demanding because now this guy has already been hired saying you don't have to deal with this. So what are we going to do? We're going to give the auditor, the treasurer, and everybody else more assistance because they got assistance within their own department because the treasurer has a department. So look, this is your tax dollar. This is government do what it does best. As I said, I got nothing to do with, this has got nothing to do with any personal animus with this guy. I don't even know this guy. I couldn't identify him in a lineup. Okay, the reality is, as a working in a corporation council, his opinions have been okay. I don't have a problem. But as I said, personally, to me, lawyers are people who make deals. You know, they get plea bargains and they deal with stuff and they make deals in lawsuits and stuff like that. And an administrator is somebody who makes decisions, not deals. So I don't believe a lawyer should be an administrator. They don't have the background. The administrators that I've seen, and I've seen them all in Fall River. I haven't seen them all in other cities, but I can tell you right now, as far as I'm concerned, from a qualifications area, I think I just laid it out, probably the best all-around city administrator was Connors because of his labor background. And Alan Silver because of his financial background. Neither of those gentlemen were lawyers. They were people who were used to making decisions. Bob Connors was in a New York Police Department, so he was used to making decisions.
And that's a big department.
And administrators make decisions. City administrators have to make decisions. Lawyers are not, to me, decision makers. They are arbitrators, they are negotiators of settlements and things like that. By nature, lawyers are really not structured to be somebody who's in charge. Lawyers have their niche and that niche is to deal with legal questions and making deals and stuff like that. So I don't believe it. And he's basically confirmed my suspicions by saying, look, I'm unqualified and I don't want to even touch the finances. And that's the biggest part of the damn puzzle, because how we spend our money, and shame on a city council for being so like over, they're just over the moon. I was waiting for them to break out into singing and dancing because of this 9-0. Amazing. But but I don't think anybody on a city council has ever sat at a negotiating table or dealt with a grievance or a JLMC suit as I have. I've got a hell of a lot of time logged in sitting across a table from city administrators. And I can tell you, we really don't need one. But when we had one, they weren't lawyers.
And they were good. And they were good.
Some of them were good.
Yep. So it's going to be interesting to see. We're going to have to watch and see what Mr. Atkins does, and I'm sure we'll be surprised, and I'm sure we'll have some griping to do.
Well, look, nobody's ever happy, but like I said, it gets down to one thing you said, CJ. Since this position was established, we have not been in favor of it.
Right.
This is a redundancy.
Exactly.
This is a redundancy. We have, again, created a position to create a position, because there's no necessity to have this city administrator unless you want to admit that the mayor's unqualified to run a city.
Right.
And that's what you've done. You've de facto admitted that the mayor is unqualified to run a city. We had a mayor with a GED, Carlton Viveris, that ran this city without a city administrator, when it had more people, higher school population. That's a very interesting thing. I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to go back and start looking maybe 25, 30 years ago when we had a higher school population.
With better grades.
With better educational results.
Yep.
And then I want to see how many positions that we have today that didn't exist then, to show why just adding more and more jobs, which is what the government does. They, the days of lean government and bare bones budgets are gone. It's like, pay your taxes, shut up, we just keep raising them until you're out of your home and maybe somebody else will move in. Or the feds will get it. Because look, they do not care. They do not care about how badly they pick your pocket.
Nope. And we've seen it year after year. Every time we hear the water bill, every time we hear the water rates, we hear it again and again. And if we don't get this water rate increase, if we don't get this sewer rate increase, the state's going to take us over. And this last one, they said, we got a warning letter or a warning notice from the state. So it's going to be interesting to see what this year's budget holds. Because I'm telling you now, budget time's right around the corner. Right around the corner. You're going to see that budget's got to be presented, I think, in March.
We will see. But I'll tell you, they don't care. We've gone over this on the show. We talked about the class war. We do have a class war, the bankers and the lawyers, and I think it was really, it was depressing and appalling to watch, but they finally confirmed it. Did you see that co-owner of the NBA basketball team that does so much money in business in China actually saying on a podcast, I don't care about the Uyghurs. I don't care if they're gang raped every day, if they harvest their organs, if they kill them, if they're slave labor. Nobody cares, he said. Nobody cares. And then he said, well, they don't rise to my level of where I have to care about them. This is what you have in this government now with these elitists. He said, I worry about global warming and all the other crap, virtue signaling that they pretend to care about to justify their pathetic existence, because one of the greatest human beings that ever walked this planet was Gandhi. He wore the weaved clothing of a poor individual. And
they made their own cloth.
He made his own cloth. And what did he say? He said that a society is judged by how it treats its least fortunate and its animals and its elderly. The man understood humanity. He understood that lives are important. For some scumbag billionaire to basically articulate it, I'm so glad that we actually saw it. Not my words, his words. Nobody cares. No, nobody like you cares, you scumbag. You know, and as someone from the NBA, that guy who just became a citizen and was really upset, he's pushing the Uyghurs. But anybody, you know, I don't care whether there's a genocide in Somalia or wherever. These things shouldn't happen. Human beings should care the most about other human beings and animals.
We don't care. I was going to say we don't care about our animals. It seems.
That's right.
You know. So.
But this goes to show when we talk about these elitists when they come down from Newton, we're like pets. You're just another pet. They only care about you and pretend they care about you when it's voting time.
We're tribbles.
That's right. It like Pelosi. Pelosi's like, Thomas Jefferson's crying if we don't get voting rights. It's not rights. It's changing the rules so they can win all the time.
Exactly.
You know, and it's like Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and they're all crying. Their statues are crying. I guess she's getting as senile as Joe, because I guess she forgot that her party has attacked Washington and Jefferson as slave owners.
Right.
So now all of a sudden she's invoking their statues to cry because they can't get their way, just like the filibuster. All of a sudden the filibuster is a question of democracy. Democracy's gone. It's out the window if we don't get the ability to change the rules so we can win all the time. And isn't that the party that invoked the filibuster over 300 times last year?
I believe so.
But then again, here we go. We change the rules any way we want, and we adjust our narrative because we don't really care. We're billionaires, and in our world, you people, you don't even exist. That guy doesn't live in a tent on an LA street or an Austin street. He's got palatial estates probably all over the world. When he walks out on his terrace, he doesn't see poor people. He doesn't even care about it. He doesn't care that there is a genocide going on with the Uyghurs. He doesn't care about what they've done to Tibet. And the guy actually brought a good point up. China has dominated Tibet for over 50 years. They took over another country. So, but they don't care. And if they con you, you people who believe their crap like they care about you, believe me, somebody whose income puts them in a position where they don't have to even pay attention to you unless they're trying to get something from you or unless they want to hire you as their maid. You better believe there are two classes in this country. And if you don't start voting like that, remember, there are more of us than there are of them. And the problem that they have the power is because you don't go to the polls. We told you, what was the turnout for de Blasio? 8%, 6%? Yep. Then they were talking about a few other places where we got these radicals in, and they're talking about voter turnout of below 6%. Washington, D.C., I think, had a voter turnout below 6%. So, you know, when you don't vote, you lose control of your government. We've lost control, and if you ever want to get it back, get your lazy butts to the polls in every election.
When you don't vote, you surrender your rights.
Exactly.
That's exactly what happens. Speaking of rights, I got to talk about the city council meeting a little more.
Rights.
Last night, because City Councilor Pereira wasn't going to be present on the 8th, and City Councilor Camara wasn't going to be present on the 1st, they argued to have the meetings changed. And they went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth over it, that they came up with the 15th and the 22nd. The meetings are back to back, 1 week apart. What is going to happen in 1 week? It's sometimes hard enough with 2 weeks. But I've got to give kudos to City Councilor Raposo. Andrew turned around and said, why don't we just do it by ordinance? Imagine that. Do it by the law. If you're going to be somewhere on a specific date and you can't be at your meeting, too bad. You're not at your meeting. You're absent. Not a big deal.
And even if it is a big deal, as you said, sometimes there's certain circumstances you can't make a meeting, but a meeting is a meeting.
That's right.
And if it's a scheduled meeting and you take the job, you knew what the conditions were. I'm going to get a little plug for these people that don't belong to the Retirees Association. We meet the second Thursday of every month at the Liberal Club. So if I can't make it on the second Thursday of a month, even though I'm the president, the meeting has to go on. If I have a situation, and I don't think I've ever missed a meeting, and since I've been a member of the organization, basically, but the fact is, if I have to miss it for some reason, that's why we have other offices. But the reality is, kudos, as you said, to Mr. Raposo. He actually, because I believe he's a school principal in a private school, in a parochial school. So there's a man who knows how to administer. The rules are the rules. I'm sure that the rules in his school are the rules. And that he's not going to have to change the rules every other meeting to satisfy somebody when there's 9 people involved in a decision. Somebody's always got something. There's always something else you could do. And as I believe it was either Benjamin Franklin, I believe it was Benjamin Franklin or Thomas Jefferson who said, it's never the time that's lacking, it's the will. So if something's important to you, you'll show up. So unless there's a medical condition preventing it, and even if there was, you go on with the meetings. And kudos to our newest city councilor for standing up and actually talking about what the ordinances say. But then again, the rest of the city council gets a thumbs down because they don't care about the ordinances on that issue.
And, I've got to give a thumbs down to City Council President Pamela Liberté for that particular reason, because she should have taken the position that this is an ordinance, this is the way it is. She needs to be able to exercise her authority as a city council president. And she needs to make it clear, because there was only 2 people that had conflicts when the meetings were going to be changed. And there was only 1 person who had a conflict when the meetings weren't going to be changed and they were done by ordinance. I don't know if she was going on vacation. I don't know what was going on. But guess what? You're away, that's it. We accept it. And you need to accept it. You're not at the meeting. And the city will go on without you, one way or the other.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Don't they, when they get sworn in, don't they swear to uphold like the Constitution, the state statutes, and the city ordinances?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean and as the president of the council, doesn't she have even a greater obligation to enforce those ordinances?
I would think so.
Laws? I would think. I have to totally agree.
Yeah. I mean, it was not acceptable at all. And another thing that wasn't acceptable was a 40-minute recess, 40 minutes between the Committee on Finance and the full City Council meeting. Why? Because the finance people brought nothing down. This is the quarterly review. That information nothing was presented. Nothing. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know. What's going on? I don't know. Wow. Who knows? Who knows anything? I don't know.
It's like Yogi Berra, deja vu all over again.
I don't know. I just don't know.
They never know.
Yeah. And the city council just let it go because they didn't know. What were they supposed to do? They didn't have the information. Again, it was all presented in the city council agenda. It was sent out because I've got copies of it, but they didn't have the information. They weren't able to ask any questions about it because I don't know. That's not acceptable. Oh well. Well, I want to thank you all for watching. Remember, thanks for inviting us into your home. And remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.